covering climate, weather, and the industrial enterprise from Penn State Meteorology. Here is Up in the Air.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Up in the Air. I'm Joe Spear.
And I am Logan Williams. We have a wide array of topics to get to today, anywhere from Arctic sea ice extent to the recent climate strike.
We also have a feature from former Up in the Air member Mike Susko about climate hazards, but first, here's Update in the Air.
Arctic sea ice is nearing record low territory. The summer melting period usually reaches its climax in September before colder conditions move in for the winter. As the climate warms, not only is that melting period extending later and later into the year, but the minimum ice extent is also shrinking. Since 2002, every summer's minimum ice extent has been below the long-term average. The 10 lowest years have all been recorded since 2007. By the end of this year's melting period, it's expected that 2019 will be among the top. The ice, which is also thinning, means more of it is susceptible to seasonal changes rather than being long-lasting ice sheets. This is problematic because the Arctic is warming faster than any other part of planet Earth, and what happens in the Arctic has a domino effect on weather across the rest of the planet.
This past Friday marked what was probably the largest demonstration globally on climate change led by the world's youth. Millions of people took to the streets worldwide to urge world leaders to make serious strides to combat climate change. There were roughly 250,000 in New York City, 100,000 in London, 1.4 million across Germany, and thousands more. The movement was sparked by climate activist Greta Thunberg, who at just 16 years old sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to speak at the United Nations Climate Summit. Though timid in appearance, she had no issue confronting world leaders. In her address on Monday, her words resonated with "People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth." Hopefully this strike and future ones will give climate change not just the attention it deserves, but the attention it demands.
Only a month after a funeral was held for a dying glacier in Iceland, a repeat performance has occurred in Switzerland. The ceremony was organized by the Swiss Association for Climate Protection to honor the ailing landmark. The Peisel Glacier, located in the Alps in northeastern Switzerland, has lost much of its ice in the last several years. Scientists say nearly 80% of the glacier's volume has vanished since 2006. Furthermore, researchers say that up to 90% of the glaciers in the Alps could disappear by 2100 if greenhouse gas emissions are left unchecked. Mourners who attended the ceremony, many of whom were locals, avid hikers, or climate activists, said they hope displays such as this one will help people realize the immediate effect that a changing climate is having on our planet.
Penn State has put itself at the forefront of the biggest solar project in Pennsylvania. University President Eric Barron and Governor Tom Wolf met earlier this month to celebrate the deal. Penn State will partner with Lightsource BP to install thousands of solar panels. The energy company has been known to build solar farms that benefit biodiversity and agriculture. 150,000 panels will be built in 3 locations concentrated in Franklin County. Lightsource BP will build and operate the solar farms, and Penn State will purchase all of the generated electricity for a 25-year contract. The purchased electricity will provide for 25% of Penn State's purchased power. The university plans on saving $14 million from the contract and reduce emissions every year by 57,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide, similar to taking around 12,000 cars off the road. Penn State hopes to build and enhance the local community, as well as make great strides towards becoming environmentally friendly.
As global leaders gather at the United Nations in New York City for the Climate Summit, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has laid out a plan he hopes will help developing nations battle climate change. The funds, which will amount to nearly £1 billion, will be utilized to help these countries specifically in areas such as preventing deforestation, reducing carbon emissions, and preparing farmers for the effects of climate change. The Prime Minister is also expected to announce a £220 million fund dedicated to preventing the extinction of endangered species, such as the black rhino and the African elephant. The amount of money being pledged to these developing nations almost doubles the previous commitment, which was first announced ahead of the landmark Paris Climate Agreement in 2015 under Theresa May's administration.
You could argue that a tomato is a fruit or a vegetable, but what if it's also the key to improving agriculture? Researchers have discovered that tomato crops affected by drought trigger a gene in their DNA called a jumping gene. This gene moves throughout the entire DNA of the plant and can either change, increase, or decrease another gene's qualities. The jumping genes were originally discovered in corn kernels back in the 1940s. If these genes are already present in a plant, they can be used to increase crop yield and harvest efficiency instead of color and size. The trouble is that the jumping gene can be sporadic throughout a crop, activating in some and not all in others. If scientists can hone in on what activates this gene, it can be used to improve crops more consistently. This method even follows the guidelines set by governments regarding genetically modified organisms. In times where drought is putting more stress on farming, scientists just might have found a way to make agriculture great again.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Now we go to a feature from former Up in the Air member Mike Susko on climate hazards.
Climate change. The legitimacy of the topic has been talked about and debated for decades, all while we continue to pour enormous amounts of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. Hundreds of studies have been performed all across the world in various disciplines, ranging from meteorology, climate science, hydrology, geography, and more. Some of these studies look into how different parts of the world will be impacted by a changing climate. Using a study published by Dr. Camila Mora of the University of Hawaii, major U.S. cities can now determine what their top climate hazards will be by the year 2050. The Southeast will have to deal with more extreme precipitation events and freshwater deficits. Along the coastline, sea level rise and storms pose the greatest climate threat for 2050. Out in the Southwest and Southern Plains, the biggest threat to the region is drought. While this region of the country is used to dry conditions, studies indicate the region will be much drier for a longer duration in the future. The Great Lakes are expected to see temperatures increase over the next few decades, which will be their main climate hazard. While warming temperatures will be a welcoming sign for some, an increase in average temperatures can damage local agriculture and negatively impact the local economy. For the northeastern United States, including Pennsylvania, extreme precipitation events are likely to increase, therefore increasing the risk for flooding throughout the region. While there is a great amount of uncertainty with climate projections for the future, numerous studies have shown weather patterns across the world will change as climate shift continues. However, the impacts we see on the ground will vary based on location. For Up in the Air, I'm Mike Susko.
Welcome back to the show. So, Logan, this week marked the first week of official fall, and temperature-wise, it really didn't feel like that.
No, it was pretty warm for a good chunk of the week, with the exception of Tuesday. Tuesday was a fall-feeling day. So now let's take it over to Ryan at the Climate Wall with a look at the first week of October.
That's right, Joe. Logan. Would you believe it, that our average high actually this time of year is closer to 68? Again, like you guys mentioned, we had temperatures really in the 70s and 80s, so really not close to that. Our mean temperature is closer to 58, and our average low this time of year, September 26, is 49 degrees. Our record low is back in 1947. We had a record low of 29 degrees, so we've been nowhere near that, but with winter coming, we should see those temperatures pretty soon. And our record high was 86 degrees just a couple years ago in 2017. And that's a little bit more believable because we have seen temperatures this past couple weeks pretty close to that. Now let's take a look at the temperature outlook from October 2nd to October 8th. Really below normal temperatures in the northwest and above normal temperatures for the southeast. Taking a look in the Billings area in Yellowstone, really some entrenching cold air coming in, and if you got winter lovers and precipitation lovers with terms of snow, you should see that pretty soon, as we got some cold air, and if some precipitation is possible, it will be in the way of snow. Taking a look in the western part of the coast of California, we got a little bit of dry air. You see it right here, but San Francisco should be pretty average. As you move into the mountains, you got a little bit of cold air entrenched there. Now let's take a look around Atlanta. We've got some warm, humid air from Atlanta, really above normal temperatures. And taking a look across our neck of the woods, we got some average, a little bit above average temperatures in State College. A little bit cooler towards Maine, but that's because of, we got some colder air for this time of year, so it's not unheard of. And that's why we do have some leaves turning, which you'll actually see pretty soon. And specifically in State College, you got above normal temperatures. Further south in the mid-Atlantic, got a little bit warmer from October 2nd to October 8th. That's what we should see. Now let's take a look at the precipitation outlook from October 2nd to October 8th. Got really below normal precipitation in the southeast, in the interior Mountain West, but for most of really the entire country, from the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest, we got instead some above normal precipitation. Now, specifically in Minneapolis, you will see a lot of precipitation coming in. And with a little bit of cooler air, you might see some dreary and uncomfortable conditions, unfortunately. Again, the interior Mountain West, below normal precipitation, a lot of dry air with cooler air. But again, up closer to Billings, where we had some colder air and about average precipitation, you might see some snow in Yellowstone. In the Pacific Northwest, you got above normal precipitation with a lot of precipitation coming from the ocean. Closer to Texas and El Paso, you got above normal precipitation. Atlanta really going to be dry and warm, so even though you do got maybe along the coast, it might be a little bit humid, but closer into Atlanta and the North Carolina mountains, it'll be a little bit more dry. From our neck of the woods, State College, you'll see about average precipitation for the outlook from October 2nd to October 8th. Now let's take a look at the drought monitor. Really from Texas to Phoenix and some spotty areas in the southeast, you got some really dry conditions over the past really several weeks and several months. Especially in Phoenix, there has been a drought issue, so we should monitor that really well, see if there's going to be any more precipitation and relief. Now we're taking a look in the Pacific Northwest. We actually do have a little bit of drought, but again, from October 2nd to October 8th, we will see a more precipitation, so there will thankfully be some relief in the Pacific Northwest. Texas, especially in the central part of the state, got really a lot of dry air the past several weeks. In Atlanta, there has been a good amount of dry conditions the past several weeks and several months. Taking a look from our neck of the woods, State College, really average. Maybe looking at southern mid-Atlantic and interior parts of the Northeast, there has been a little bit of drought issues. Let's take a look at the fall foliage report, which is a lot different than we did see last week. Taking a look in the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains, White Mountains, and over across the valleys of even Maine, we got some low to little change, but more medium change as we go up in the mountains. The Catskills, there has been some change as well. And some people might say there has been a little bit of change here in the mountains, but not enough to really show up on a report. But it is starting to come in. Now let's take a look at our weekend forecast. For Saturday, you got really warm conditions, 82 degrees with a chance of a shower. But so my pick of the weekend would be Sunday. We got mostly sunny skies and a high of 77 degrees. So back to you, Joe and Logan. I hope this weekend will be a good one for you guys.
All right, and thank you, Ryan. That weekend forecast does look a little troubling, but thank goodness there's no football game on Saturday that will have to account for the thunderstorms.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I was at the last home football game for Penn State, and they had to evacuate everyone to the stands because of lightning. And that definitely wasn't a fun time. So I hope everyone's able to get out and about, especially on Sunday, to enjoy the sunny and still warm weather. And thank you for joining us, and watch us again next week on Up in the Air.